about to start.
What's up, everybody? This is Logic here at No Conduct Radio. I am a little discombobulated right now because Kai is slacking off, and I had to wake up from a deep sleep in order to bring all of this together. And currently, I'm the only one here. So we're going to be talking about tonight Black History Month. All month we've been observing the heroes and the different stories that's made us as Black people unique. I have a question that was forwarded by Kai from a listener who asks why we have Black History Month and no other specific racial history month, I guess. I've heard this question before. I've heard this commented on actually by, I believe it was Morgan Freeman was in the interview with someone. I think it was Charlie Rose or whatever. He says he doesn't think it should exist. One part because he felt it was silly, and another part he said, how would you fit all of our history into 1 month? Half of that I agree with. There technically should not be a Black History Month because our history here is a part of American history, and it should be acknowledged. But because the government and the established order that this country has been set upon from the beginning was based off of a system of racism. So typically it's not going to be acknowledged. That's another reason why we largely ignore First Nation or Native Indians and their contributions in history, which we shouldn't, But that's what the system is based off of. It is changing very slowly, but I do think Black history is necessary in order to at least acknowledge it and as Black people explore, our past. If you don't know your past, then you're doomed to repeat it. So that's my take on it. And we will be talking about unsung Black history heroes. I'm not going to talk about the typical ones, which is like Martin Luther King and all that stuff. We already know that. That's like a throwaway topic, no disrespect. But I do want to talk about people that have been eclipsed in history, and especially in Black history. We often talk about Rosa Parks and her contribution in being, I believe some people call her the mother of the civil rights movement. But actually, it's fraudulent in a degree. There was actually a young Black girl who her name was Claudette Colvin. And I think I might have posted something on her already for this month on the site. I think you should check out the Facebook page. But I believe I did. But anyway, about maybe 9 months to a year, I can't remember how far before it was, but Claudette Colvin, which was a young 15-year-old girl, she was one of the first. I don't know if she was absolutely the first, but she is documented as the first to be arrested for refusing to give up a seat for the reason of rejecting the idea that a white person deserves a seat more than a Black person. So it could have been others that just maybe didn't say it and got arrested, but as far as the documentation is concerned, she's the first. But, she refused to give a receipt to a white passenger in Montgomery, Alabama. And she actually, the reason that she gave when the cop got there was that she said, it is my constitutional right to stay seated. And she also went on to say in an interview, she felt it was her ancestors. Was it her ancestors? It might have been her ancestors or possibly great leaders from the past, like Frederick Douglass or whatever. But she said something like she felt them. She felt as though they were like watching, or she needed to be steadfast for their honor. And so that was the reason she got up. She got snatched off the bus by her hair and arrested and, thrown in jail. And she went down to the NAACP to tell her story. And that is where she introduced to Rosa Parks, because Rosa Parks was a secretary for the NAACP. And now I'm not sure what got the ball rolling on the civil rights movement or who planted the idea, but when it was starting to be considered that they need to be like the vanguards for it, they started thinking about, okay, let's talk about boycotting these buses. Obviously, they thought about Claudette. Now, this is where it gets a little convoluted. Some say that she wasn't considered because she was apparently had gotten pregnant in her teenage years, which was very taboo back then. Others claim that it might have also been because she was a dark-skinned woman, and Rosa Parks is very light-skinned, and so they wanted a sympathetic face, as someone described it, for white America to look at and consider, like, oh, okay, this is an older woman, dignified, and, she's light-skinned, which is, I guess, easier for their racial palette. I don't know. But, she was basically eclipsed. Rosa Parks claims that, she always she would correct people. However, I've never saw her say, hey, no, this was Claudette was before me, so all of this mother of civil rights, I don't like that. Don't say that. She never corrected anybody as far as I'm concerned. So I think eventually she, just went along with the theme of it, or the title, if you would. But, Claudette Colvin was the first. And, that was the original person.
Yeah, well, kind of like how I was being, I am sitting here slacking. Kai is here. Kai is always here, wherever. Hi, everyone. Well, actually, good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of No Conduct Radio. Kai is on the air. I may be late, but I'm still here. Thank you, Logic. Thank you so much. I had a feeling that that's who you were going to bring up, because that's the first person I thought of when I was thinking about unsung heroes of Black history. And I'm glad you brought up those questions from those listeners, because I did have a lot of questions come in. And, I did send it. So Logic is taking over the show tonight because Kai is out doing some jobs for Amazon. Yes, I'm name dropping. I'm doing some IT jobs for Amazon, and I'm not done yet. So that's why he started the show and he's taking over. And I did have some listeners, they wanted to know, why is there no White History Month, for instance, and why is there no, I guess, don't we have a Chinese American History Month or something, and we have a Latino History Month or something? I can't remember. Don't we?
I mean, I don't know if it's federally sanctioned, but no, as far as I know, there's no other month. I don't even think there's a Native American history. Oh, you know what?
Hello.
I have to correct myself.
Hey, you guys, I was trying to jump in there, Logic. I was trying to jump in, but you were just on a roll. It was so interesting listening to your unsung hero choices, so I did not want to interrupt the flow. of what you were presenting to the world here. So, but I do want to say this. Latinos obviously have Cinco de Mayo, so they have one particular day. I believe they may have a month. I thought I heard something about that, but I don't think
Cinco de Mayo.
You know. Well, Cinco de Mayo. No, I'm saying, think about it. It still represents independent. You know, the history of their independence in Mexico. I mean, it's just there's so many different cultures within the Latino culture.
But that's
I'm just saying Mexico. They have one day.
That's not all Spanish people. It's just Mexico.
But no matter where you live, think about it. No matter where you live on that particular day, right, May 5th. Cinco de Mayo, other Latin cultures and Latino cultures do actually celebrate, because it's still, just because you're Mexican doesn't mean that you don't understand the similar cultures or foods or even some of the language or history or what have you with other Latino cultures. It's easy to cross, you know, to cross barriers, not cross barriers, but to intertwine. So I think it's, you know, it's kind of like how we have islanders, you know, who say we have our own culture, but we may physically, some of us look black, opposed to whatever. We can still relate to some things that they can appreciate or celebrate, you know, whether they're in America or you know, or somewhere else. So I'm just saying that's as close as I was aware of, but I believe there might be an actual month. And then, of course, you know, there's other cultures that celebrate things. For example, if you want to call this culture, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated for people that are Irish, but technically St. Patrick wasn't not Irish, he was English, so that's kind of ridiculous. But more importantly, though, I actually found several unsung heroes that some of our viewers and even myself, like I was really surprised. There's so many people in Black history, I believe, that are not really being recognized in our time today that they might have been at the time that they actually fought for something or changed something in history. If I can
Char,
say that.
Before you go into that, I wanted to kind of point out that when people say stuff like Logic said, it's something that you hear a lot. Why is there not a White History Month or something like that? When people say something like that, I always point out to them every day, every second is White History Month. You know, my daughter comes home from school
every
telling
time
me about
you use money is White History. You know, all those dead white men on there.
They face the mountain. It's Native American ancient burial ground, and they put the presidents up there. Like, I mean, everywhere you look is White history. Like, I was going to say, my daughter comes home from school talking about, you know, Vikings, and now she's learning about Hitler. And she's like, why do we have to learn about him? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. That actually had nothing to do with the United States. It was Germany. It has nothing to do with us. Whereas we have our own Holocaust, and they don't talk about it. So, not that I'm saying, like, you know, not that I don't even know how to put it. I shouldn't even have to put this disclaimer, because if you even say one thing, people are like, oh, you're anti-Semite, whatever. But my thing was, that happened in Germany. That's German history. Even if you want to say that's European history, that's nothing to do with the United States. But we don't learn about our own Holocaust that they're constantly, like, they're trying to wipe it out of the history book. So, like, Texas, they don't have slavery in the history books anymore. And there's another state that took it out also. And just like that, who was it, that senator or whatever who tried to call it indentured servitude? Who was that? Who did that?
Wow.
I don't know, but I know somebody in politics tried to say we're all immigrants, as if slaves are immigrants. You know,
we're immigrants? And they decided to come here for better jobs?
It was somebody black, too, if I'm not mistaken. They tried to say that, you know, we're immigrants, too. It's like, who? Us? No, we were kidnapped. What are you talking about? That's not immigration.
Right. You're right. You're absolutely right. It wasn't by any choice of our own. Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't.
But I need to update what I said earlier. Claudette wasn't the first. You know.
Thank you. I was going to correct you. Go ahead.
It was actually Irene Morgan Kirkaldy.
Irene Morgan Kirkaldy. Right, Kirkaldy in 1944.
Yeah, 11 years before.
Yep.
Before Claudette. So
exactly. And it was where? In Virginia. So she was the first to give up her, refuse to give up her seat, basically. So everyone just well, why is it, Logic, do you think that people automatically assume or believe or think they know that it was Rosa Parks anyway? Why do you suppose why is it that we just aren't giving credit to someone who went through something similar?
He who controls information controls the message. NAACP was in charge of black information at that time, and the secretary of the NAACP was Rosa Parks. So, of course, they wanted it to be one of their people.
Oh, yeah. Wow. No, I did not know that.
I didn't know that at all.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I found out that she wasn't the first one to do it is because I was reading an article about how darker, colorism in our history and how darker people get, passed over. The person to sit was a dark-skinned woman. And so they were guessing that maybe she didn't get any kind of recognition because she was dark-skinned and Rosa Parks was light. But you're saying it's because she was part of the NAACP?
No, I think it was twofold because the NAACP was also very worried about white people being sympathetic towards certain things, so they wanted it to be as palpable as possible, and obviously dark-skinned black people wasn't something that white America at that time really wanted to see or cared about, but the lighter the person was, the more they'd be like, oh, no, I'm willing to listen, you know what I mean? I mean, there was plenty of preachers before Martin Luther King.
We weren't trying to do this for white America. We were trying to do this for black people.
For
who cares what they want
us. So what? Yeah, I don't see how it would matter. But can I just add this? I'm looking at a picture. Well, I've seen her before, but of Irene worked in Kirkaldy. And, I mean, whenever I've seen her photos, she's light brown anyway. It doesn't really matter, but she's just light brown skin. She's not dark anything. It's just light brown skin. She's a black woman. So, but, yeah, we're looking at this. This is our fight. But you know what? The funny thing is she still has the help of the NAACP because according to this, it says PBS reports with the help of her lawyers from the NAACP, including Thurgood Marshall, the Supreme Court ruled in her favor on June the 3rd, 1946. So she actually did have a good, she had enough support. She had the right, I guess you could say, platform in the media at that time. So maybe it was a race thing where even, the media decided, because you know how media filters now certain things they don't want us to know? Maybe back then it was that way, according to how your complexion was. I mean, think about it. Maybe that is what was going on.
Isn't there some rule from back in the day, something about the brown paper bag or something like that?
Yeah, that's the paper bag. Yep, that's right. Just like the one drop rule. The paper bag, if your skin is the color of the paper bag, an average paper bag is all the same type of brown, right? Then you're considered to be black, or you likely have at least one more than a few drops or what have you. But if it's lighter than that bag, then you're mixed or you're not quite black.
No.
How does that go?
No. That's not what the brown bag test was. The brown bag test was actually a black thing, and it was, people who decided whether or not you could come into the party or you could be a part of an organization or whatever it was. If you were darker than a brown paper bag, you were rejected because they didn't want to associate with people that dark.
Wow,
brown paper bag.
That's really bad. We've resorted to paper bags. My God, that's crazy. That's really crazy.
I think it's still kind of like that, but I hear that light-skinned black people have it hard too because black people automatically think that they're stuck up or they think they're better or whatever. That's the main thing I hear from light-skinned black people. And then dark-skinned black people, just nobody wants to be them.
Yeah, but they automatically think that someone that's lighter is stuck in themselves and that they get a better share at so many triumphs in life. Like they get treated better, that they're maybe more confident, or just it's that's ridiculous.
Have you ever had somebody accuse you of thinking you're better or a pretty boy or whatever just because your skin is light?
Pretty boy, I heard all through my life.
Right.
I've had to fight a lot more because I guess there were some people that felt if you were light skinned you probably couldn't fight as good as I don't know.
What? What
You know,
kind of
it's a mixed bag.
stereotype is that?
Because you have to be more blackish appealing to be more Mandingo strong, maybe.
That doesn't even make sense. There are white boys that can throw that. Doesn't even make sense.
Especially if they're Irish, they can definitely fight. So that is kind of crazy, right? No, but I imagine, Logic, it's likely just because, and you know what? Now, please, guys, stop me if this doesn't sound right, okay? But were there people that were envious of your looks, envious of the fact that, you know, you do have an exotic look that's not exactly like your typical, what they would say, what most of our, say, relatives and friends or cousins just happen to look like? Do you feel like people were just, you know, would maybe start fights because they actually were jealous, just assuming that life was greater for you based on your features or based on your hair texture or based on your complexion? Does that make sense? Of course you're black, but do you get what I'm saying? People do split hairs like that. They really do, especially when they're not confident with who they are.
Yeah, so do you think you got into some fights because of jealousy? Yeah.
Envy, jealousy of what you physically, what they see. They don't know, especially when they don't know you. That's the messed up part. They just judge you from the outside. Did that happen, do you think? Opposed to just because you couldn't fight or they thought you couldn't fight because you were like, what was it really? Do you think it's just that they were just jealous looking at you? I mean, men are envious just like women are.
Char, you asked the longest questions in the history of questions.
I know, and then I don't even let him respond because I have to reiterate it. I think he heard me. A couple of times, so I'll just let him answer. Go ahead, Logic. Sorry about that.
That question splintered off quite a bit. What's the question now?
The question is, do you think you got into fights because people were jealous of you?
Or envious of your look?
Not
just your color. I'm looking at your features, your hair texture, things like that. That's what people.
I mean, I think maybe a couple, because it was a couple, because I know that they would make reference about, you know, girls and stuff like that, you know, before there was a problem. You know what I mean? But most of them through my life was just, you know, people. That's how the streets are anyway. They test you to see if you're weak or not. And I got tested a lot because, you know, I'm typically a quiet guy. I don't really say much. And I don't know. I guess a look that I have, or perhaps my light skin, you know, they assume that I would be a pushover, but I don't know if I'm from the same streets as you are. I don't know why you think. I'm not going to be able to throw my hands like you. I don't know.
That's very interesting.
So people do judge based on looks and assumptions. And I hate to say this, but in the black culture, there's a lot of personal. Okay, people argue over hair textures, skin complexions, but they definitely pit each other against it. It's ridiculous, though. Like, why are we, no pun intended, why are we splitting hairs over whose hair is straighter, who doesn't need a perm, whose hair is curly, whose hair is long, whose hair goes faster? Why is this important in our community? We should be ashamed of ourselves. But people actually can fight to the point of not talking again because of either envy or misunderstanding or ignorance. Kai, you sound like you can understand what I'm saying. Have you actually seen? Have you seen? Have you witnessed this?
I have not gotten into any fights because of that. Go ahead, Logic.
What was that?
No, I was just going to say, if you're looking for the origin of that thought process, you have to take it back to the plantation. If you have the slave owner showing favor to the light-skinned blacks and letting them do the light work and, you know, easy work and, you know, saying that they're more attractive or whatever, and then the dark ones are in the field and, you know, being brutalized a bit more perhaps, you know, there's going to be animosity that builds up, especially if even after the plantation, society tends to favor a lighter-skinned black person. You look at BET, when black people owned it, it was a lot more Afrocentric. you know. But now that Viacom has bought it, there's Spanish people on there and very light-skinned black people or whatever. Like, it's not, there's no diversity in color anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say, I haven't gotten into any fights because of that, but, yeah, people have said different things that I guess because I was, I don't know what the word would be, shielded when I was little. I didn't realize half of the stuff was an insult until I got older and, like, I'm thinking about it. I've had people tell me you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I didn't know what that meant for a dark-skinned girl. I've had people that told me that I look like I should be with a Latino guy or a white guy. I don't know what, again, I still to this day don't know what that means. I've had people who told me my hair can't be mine or I must have put some chemicals in it because my hair isn't kinky curly and I guess I'm dark-skinned, or people who told me that they could have swore I had tracks in my hair because my hair is not supposed to be so long because dark-skinned girls don't have long hair. I've had stuff like that. And when it was told to me this was in my 20s, I didn't realize it was an insult. I just really thought they were stupid. What are you talking about? Like, everybody in my family has long hair, and we range in skin color from light to dark. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
That's just my family.
But these assumptions are still happening. Kai, these assumptions of people, well, when I say assumptions, what I mean is these misjudgments or this type of envy and discourse, I mean, this still happens. Like, for example, my niece is, she's dark brown skin, and like your family, my family's like that too, so her hair is all the way down. It was literally to her waist. She's never had a perm in her life. It's all her hair. But when she was in 7th grade, she said that the girls in the bathroom came in with scissors and told her dark-skinned girls are not supposed to ever wear makeup. And they tried to cut her hair. Now, to this day, she's 40 years old now. To this day, she's a dancer. To this day, she won't wear makeup, especially eyeshadow, because they told her she should never wear that, don't wear anything, because of that stigma that was instilled that many years ago in her head based on her skin color. She just won't. When I say she won't wear any makeup at all, that's just her choice, like none.
Now that you mentioned that, and then we need to get back to our topic before we run out of show. But the funny thing is, some light-skinned girl from the island, actually, I had on, I think this was in high school, so I tried on lip gloss or whatever, so I was, and she told me I looked like I had grease on my lips, chicken grease or something like that. And
oh, my gosh, that's bad.
She said it doesn't look good on me or something like that. And since then, I really not from since then. For a long time, let me put it that way, I didn't wear Vaseline or anything on my lips. I would make sure whatever it was not shiny. And then I grew up. When I say I grew up, I'm like in my mid-20s, and I realized, I realized I was doing it. I realized why I did it. And I was like, you know what? Look, if it looked like I just ate chicken, then I just had to eat. And I started wearing, chapstick. I don't wear lipstick or anything like that, but I started wearing chapstick, and it has, at least my lips are glossy, and I think I look fierce. And screw you if you don't think I do so. Whatever.
Absolutely. And I'm sure.
It's funny that you say that.
Right. But
Kai, you're very. I didn't even remember that.
But you're very strong, though. But what about all these other the young people, and then even as they get older now, that never get past that? That really can hurt. My niece is 40 years old now, so you were able to get past it in your 20s. But to this day, she absolutely won't even wear lip gloss. Nothing unless she's performing. That's it. And she said, well, I don't think that I'm not supposed to wear it, and I don't look good. And it was just, thank God they didn't cut her hair that day, because they have the scissors and she fought. And to this day, her hair is still down to her waist.
Nobody has
I know, no. Well, when you've got 3 girls jumping with scissors in the bathroom, I mean, it's kind of like, whoa, you know what I mean? But the point is, this is all over racism. And she never told me if there were other races. She didn't tell me if they were black, if they're white, whatever.
It might not have even been racism. It might have been colorism.
We
have it in our own.
Well, what's the difference?
I just had a conversation today with this guy, another technician. I thought he was black. I mean, he could still be black, but he looked like just a really light-skinned black guy. but he gave his last name, and it was a Latino last name. But anyway, he was telling me he, lives in a certain part of, and I was like, because he was like, hey, do you think this stuff is going to be all right in my car? And I was like, yeah, because he was picking up some IT stuff for me. And I was like, yeah, I don't live in the hood. And he said, he said something, and he had told me where he lives. I said, wait a second, that's a good area. He was like, yeah, it's getting what is gentrification? Gentrified, is it? It's getting gentrified, but yeah, he said it's getting gentrified, but the people who used to live there are still, unfortunately doing stuff that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I said, that's kind of horrible to say, And so we actually got into that conversation. I was like, yeah, they're trying to take them out of the place, but the mentality that they have, which is why they're stealing, is just a mentality that keeps going around in a circle. Nobody's actually trying to help pull them out of that mentality through education, through jobs, through this, through that. And he was like, yeah, you know what, me and my fiance, we actually just finished having that conversation. So I don't know if he was saying he had that conversation saying that they're, what I was saying, or like, yeah, they come up in here, they steal our stuff. So I was just like, that's horrible of you to say, and for you to look how you do, because at first glance I just figured you were black.
I'm confused. What did he say? What did he say?
He was just saying, my area is being gentrified, and the people, unfortunately, the people who used to live there, they still steal and do all of this stuff and blah, 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 just trying to make it seem like, yeah, it's getting better through gentrification, but the old people are still there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so he was trying to make it seem like it was a racial reason that they were stealing? Is that what you're saying?
It kind of sounded like that. Like, the people who were there before are still there. And I was like, kind of horrible to say.
Or was he trying to say that you live in this hood? I'm a little nervous. I don't know about that area, but thank God it is being, what? I don't understand why he even made that comment to you.
I can see him being happy that it's being cleaned up. But if he was trying to insinuate it was a racial reason that they steal, that's obviously wrong. But stealing has nothing to do with race or whatever. It's poor people. If you're poor and you don't, you come from a family that is dysfunctional, there's certain behaviors you're going to be into. If you park your car around a rural area where there's a lot of trailer parks and underprivileged white people in the hills or wherever it may be, your car's going to get broken into. It has nothing to do with the ghetto or whatever. It's demographic. If you're in a place where people pretty much have what they need or whatever, nobody's looking to break into a car. But if you got broke people that don't have options, that come from a family that's for generations never had options, never educated themselves, never have invested in their futures, never have done anything, people that have constantly grown up in families where we can't afford that, we can't afford that, we can't afford that. Yeah, when you grow up, you're going to want everything. Hook or crook, you want to take it because you're tired of doing without. Yeah. It's not a skin thing. It's not a nationality thing. It's, I don't know why people don't understand that.
That's even a wrong assumption that it's only like poor neighborhoods, because in rich neighborhoods, these kids get bored.
They
go out and they take your car and just break your windows.
It's less. It is less. Because I don't live in the city and I have to worry less. Still do it. It's still going to happen if you have that kind of person with that thought, like, I just want to go in somebody's car for whatever reason. That's cool. Yeah, that's going to always exist. You know what I mean? But it's definitely going to be less than a place where it's somebody literally walking around tugging on car doors to see which one is open. Because this is what they do. They're looking for stuff to sell. Because they either have a drug problem or they need food or something, and it's just going to be less. You just look at what there's no poor people, not poor people, but there's no homeless people out in rich areas, of course, but the cops run them out of there, and they go to areas where they can just be homeless and not be messed with. That's typically going to be run-down areas. So you got a lot more homeless people wandering the streets. That's going to do what? Look in cars or whatever. But if you're living in somewhere where the cops don't play that, and they see just some homeless person walking around, and they're going to arrest them for vagrants, you got to go. Not in my streets, not in my town. That's their mentality.
Mm. Well, that's sad. That's sad. And that kind of goes along with our topic, Unsung Black Heroes, because there are a lot of black inventors, black heroes, black people who did a lot of stuff for this country, just minus the slaves in general, but black people who did a lot for the country that nobody talks about. Like my daughter she had a history paper due, and she wanted to do it on baseball player. What's his name again? Baseball player from back in the day. Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson.
What's his name?
Jackie Robinson.
She's mouthing it. She wanted to do it on Babe Ruth.
Oh, white guy.
And I'm like,
I thought it was a black guy we're looking for.
No. She wanted to do it on Babe Ruth because she's like, I know about him, so it'll be easy to write. And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, absolutely not. And she's like, but Mommy, you always choose for me. I said, I'm not choosing. I give you, here's the world. They just have to look like you. Choose whoever you want. But you're not doing Babe Ruth. Are you freaking kidding me? So she did end up choosing Jackie Robinson. That's where I got that name from.
Okay, well that's what I was saying, because he just happens to stand out at that time. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, and she didn't know anything about him. She didn't know anything about Jackie Robinson. But Babe Ruth, and I told her, I said, Babe Ruth didn't even like black people. So why are you going to write about it?
Well, he had a candy bar that we eat, but other than that, it's about what comes to mind for me. But I mean, what do I really care? I mean, because I feel like it's almost like Tommy Hilfiger. Why would I still buy his jeans years ago when I know that he really doesn't care anything about our community?
That was a myth. He never said anything like that. That was a rumor started.
But you know who did say something like that?
Well, not exactly a rumor. What was that, Kai?
You know who did say something like that? The owner of Denny's. That's why I do not do Denny's anymore. I did hear about that. Yeah, I did. I heard about that because I know a few friends that stopped going for that reason. Also, not Jack in the Box. It's called Carl's Jr. I don't know if you guys have one out there. It was something similar. What Logic was saying was it wasn't that he didn't like black people. What it was is that apparently the curves or lines of how our bodies are shaped, they're much curvier, and he knew that certain, especially let's say Tommy Hilfiger jeans, let's say, because he did have jeans for women. Let's say that, if you're getting complaints from the actual market of people you're selling to, and you're saying, well, they weren't designed for women like that with that type of a figure. So therefore, that's why they won't fit it, because they're not supposed to. They're not looking for a baby got back. They're just looking for.
I don't know where this is coming from, but he actually talked about this. He said it irritated him when that came out. He said because he was a largely unknown designer until black people got into his clothes. He said, so why would I insult the very people that made me successful? He said, I never understood why people just believed it. And he said, but, it is what it is now. There's nothing that can be done. He said, but that really bothered me. It was nothing I could do. He said, because there was no social media or anything that you could really do back in those days. He never said it. So I don't know where the rumor came from, but he never said it.
Wow. Well, that certainly was a flying rumor for a while. I definitely believed it because I had a pair of his jeans, and I wondered why they didn't hug me the way that they should at all. There was a big gap there where you would normally have a butt. There was a gap. And I said, okay, I get it. At least do a test. Hire a market research firm, whatever you have to do to just think of if you're going to sell a certain type of clothing to a certain market, just understand, how we're built, what we like, how something would actually fit on a particular type of body, opposed to just trying to make money or just hoping that you're just going to make money.
I don't really think he was making. I don't think he was making black clothes though. He was making clothes but it was just, you know, black people were into his clothes. You know, that just happened to be the thing. But I don't think he was actually like, okay, we need to cut these clothes to fit black people. I mean, anatomically, black people aren't really that different. I mean, we may have different shapes, everything, by coincidence. But to act as if like, okay, well, you can't make pants like you normally do because these are black people we're talking about here. I think he's a designer. I mean, because if you have that complaint about him, then how do black women wear Prada? You know, you're not going to tell me Prada is properly cutting their pants and stuff like that to fit black women. That's a high fashion house. You know what I mean? Like, look, they're not going to do that either. It's just, you know, whether or not people are going to buy it.
Well, you know what happened, Logic? It just so happened that apparently a few women somehow in the media, I don't know, in the world, just started to complain that they just did not specifically fit our curves. And that's where the rumor started from there, and it just ran. And like I said, even my own experience, I noticed that they just had such the gap, as they were saying, back there where it's like, really? Why am I buying these again? I just thought they were cool looking jeans, but maybe it's some truth to it. So rumors are rumors, but according to what these people felt, you know, hey, it is what it was. And like you said, I guess he didn't adjust it and say, okay, let's have a black lady version, you know, whatever. He was still going to sell them anyway. But unfortunately, it was a stigma that he was prejudiced because of that. It really was. Yeah, I remember that.
Well, so, what hero did you want to discuss? Well, we talk about a segue. Okay. We did talk about. I heard that you've already gone over. Hey, did you guys talk about? Let's start with Daisy Bates. Because remember I came in a little bit late. Daisy Bates. Well, I was 2 minutes late, but anyway. So Daisy Bates, she's absolutely beautiful, black woman too. She's a civil rights activist, and she's best known for her work But anyway, here's the point. She actually was a journalist, and so she wrote for several papers in 1952, and she became the president of the NAACP's Arkansas branch in 1957, and she fought for, it's called Little Rock 9, the 9 black students who were attending an all-white school. Do you guys remember that? As part of the desegregation at that time. So she was a civil rights activist that was best known for her work on behalf of Little Rock 9. And then her and her husband founded the Arkansas State Press, which is a weekly African-American newspaper that advocated for civil rights. Does any of this ring a bell with you guys at all? Yeah, I'm aware of the Arkansas.
Nope, I have no idea who that is.
Okay, she's very, very pretty. So if you guys have a chance to check her out, Logic said he was aware. But if any of our listeners are curious, her name is Daisy, Bates, and she was, I don't know, I didn't actually look up when she was born, but when she was very active with civil rights and with the paper and, you know, everything that she fought for, it was approximately 1952 is when it all began. And then I might have missed something that you said before I came on the show. Ella Baker, is that who you were talking about earlier or no? Did you mention Ella Baker? Did you guys hear about her? Earlier today. I didn't know if I missed specific people that I'm going over here. Okay, so Ella Baker, again, this is another one of, I would say, an unsung black hero. And it just so happens that I chose females. It's not like there's not a million men out there that I could have talked about, of course. But Baker was a civil rights activist also who worked for a number of civil rights organizations throughout her lifetime. After she graduated from the University of Carolina, and she started working again for the NAACP and co-founded the organization to fight against Jim Crow, the Jim Crow laws of 1955. And she also helped to organize Martin Luther King's Southern Christian Leadership March and some other things there. And I think this is also interesting. Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler was the first African-American physician in the United States, born in 1831. Dr. Crumpler first worked as a nurse in Massachusetts between 1852 and 1860. Now, PBS reports that she was accepted to New England Female Medical College and earned an MD in 1864, according to Times Press. And then she practiced medicine in Boston and Richmond, Virginia, primarily working with the poor. She had limited access to medical care. Now, wait a minute. She was the first African-American doctor, right? But she had limited access to medical care. Can anyone explain that? She also wrote a book, by the way. But yeah.
No. She brought medical care to black people who had limited access.
Limited access. Care. So it wasn't her. She was working with the poor. Got it. Okay, and they had limited access to medical care. Thank you for correcting me there, Logic. And then apparently she published her first book of medical discourse in 2 parts, which many believe is the first medical text written by an African-American author. Now, that's interesting, too. Yeah, so those are some of my – well, I was going to talk about Irene, but we already did. Irene Morgan Kirkaldy, who was technically the first person to give up her seat. Not give up her seat. She refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white passenger in Virginia. We did talk about her. So anybody want to elaborate on my choices? I'm excited about the choices that I made here. I think these women are phenomenal.
You said elaborate on your choices?
Yeah, I said, did either of you or anyone want to elaborate, talk about a little bit more about some of my selections? But I said I feel like my selections were phenomenal. These women are phenomenal, so I'm really, I felt good about it. There's so many to choose from. Believe it or not, there was a lot to choose from. A lot of the young people, they don't know that. They don't realize. Look what happened with Kai's daughter. She honestly just didn't pay because they push, what white America's doing. She had no idea. About Jackie Robison, because the first thing that comes to mind is Babe Ruth for almost anyone. Would you agree? That's the first thing. That's the first baseball hero anyway, I would say, when you think about it in history. So I think that's why, like I said, there were so many choices that came up for, like Kai said, I even put a Facebook post up about an African-American family. It wasn't just a particular person. It was her father, her sister, her brother, and someone else, and they've invented, between the 4 of them, they all each invented 3, 4, 5 different gadgets or things that will enhance technology, and they have patents on all of them, and all of them are things that people today, if it wasn't for that moment, we may not have it. So they're witty inventions. We're very intelligent. There's just so much that we've actually added to society that why is it that we really only get real credit in the month of February for 28 days? And does the rest of the world forget on the 29th of February? The 29th of February. Did I really say that? On the 1st of March?
I don't like that.
What was that?
I said I agree. I hate it so much. I don't like that at all.
Right. That's how it seems. It's exactly how it seems. Because even the kids in school are given assignments. But why can't they have an assignment in June? No, they're out of school. But you know what I'm saying? Why not any other part of the year? Where they're actually researching, studying, and learning about and getting excited about our contributions to the world, especially when it comes to inventions or anything that can help people to have a better quality of life, or whether it be medicine or something else that was created, or civil rights. That's important. That's how we pass laws, as people that stand up for anything. So that's what I got, guys.
All right. Well, in order to bring a guy to the list, I want to talk about a dude named Matthew Alexander Henson, who was basically a black explorer, who most notably he was with Robert Peary on the voyages to the Arctic in order to chart a course to the North Pole. He was, spent most of his life, I think it was about maybe 23 years, or it was either, it was about 18 or 23 years he spent on actual expedition. But he wasn't a part of the military or anything. He was born in Maryland, to sharecropping parents, who were the few black people that were actually free before the Civil War. But he spent, obviously his childhood down there. And then he spent the early part of his adulthood in Washington, D.C., and he left school at a very young age. I think it was like maybe 12 or 13 to join Peary and his expeditions. And when he first got on, because he was so young, all he could really do was be a cabin boy. But as a cabin boy to the captain, he learned navigation and started to learn all of the crafts and skills needed in order to become a seafaring explorer. He was hired as a personal valet in 1887 for Peary in the Nicaragua Canal. The first Arctic expedition was in 1891 to 92, and he served as a navigator and a craftsman on that voyage. And although he could not have the title of first officer, he was known on the ship as the first man to the captain. So he also studied the survival tactics of the Inuits, which is also known as the Eskimos in certain circles. The reason that he learned that was because back in those days, I guess it still happens now, but certain times of the year, the ocean up there can freeze, and your ship will get trapped in the ice. So you have to know survival tactics in order to survive and not, freeze to death, and know how to fish and be able to continue to eat and do whatever you need to do. So he and Peary made contact with the Inuits and learned their skills and stuff like that. And 1908 and 09 was his expedition to Greenland, where he and 6 other men were the first to reach the North Pole, and he himself planted the flag, or so it said. So that's Matthew Henson.
Wow, I had no idea. That was very, very interesting, Logic. Oh my gosh, I learned a lot that quickly. Hey, Kai, have you ever heard of him before?
I think I heard about him on TV. During Black History Month, ironically. I heard about him on TV. It was very interesting when I learned about that as well, though. And is that it?
What about him?
No, the people that you brought. There's one I really like that Char brought women to the table. I was going to tell her to do that anyway, but she kind of read my mind. But I wanted to hear more about that doctor. I don't know if she has any more information about that.
Char.
Char? Did she just check out?
Yeah, I think she's gone. That I think that doctor she was talking about was the first black doctor, I believe, black woman doctor, and she also published a book. But yeah, when after she got her her license to practice medicine, she basically went back to the black community and was instrumental in that area. I believe it was Massachusetts, for the poor people to be able to get health care because they couldn't afford it. She's a very dynamic individual.
That's very interesting. Who, Char?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, we know of people such as Madam C.J. Walker. Can you tell folks, I know you know this individual, the richest black girl. She was a slave, I believe, but when she was freed, she got land or something?
Oh, you talking Sarah Rector, I believe her name was. I think she got cheated out of her. Hold on, let me Let me look it up. Yeah, Sarah Rector. Okay. She was basically born in Oklahoma on Muskogee Creek Indian allotment land. I guess that's like a reservation. Both of their fathers. Wait, what? Joseph and Rose had enslaved Creek ancestry. I guess they were slaves of the Creek Indians, and they fought with the Union Army during the Civil War. And when Oklahoma statehood became imminent in 2007, the Dawes Allotment Act divided Creek lands among the Creek and their former slaves. So when they basically took the land from the natives, they dispersed it evenly among all of the people that was a part of the Creek Nation. And because they were slaves, they were technically a part of the Creek Nation. With the termination date in 1906, Rector's parents, Sarah Rector herself and her brother Joe Jr. and sister Rebecca all received land. Lands granted to former slaves were usually the rocky lands of the poorer agricultural quality. Rector's allotment of 160 acres was valued at $556, primarily to generate enough revenue to pay the $30 annual tax bill. In February 1911, Rector's father leased her allotment to the Devonian Oil Company of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in 1913. However, her fortunes changed when Wildcat oil driller B.B. Jones produced a gusher that brought 2,500 barrels a day. So basically, they struck oil over the land. Multiple wells. Rector's allotment subsequently became part of the famed Cushing Drumright Field in Oklahoma in the month of October 1913. Rector received $11,567. Once her identity became public, Rector received numerous requests for loans, money, gifts, and even marriage proposals from Germans, even though she was only 12. The Chicago Defender, which was a newspaper, published an article claiming that her estate was being mismanaged by grifters and ignorant parents, and that she was uneducated, dressed in rags, and lived in unsanitary shanty. Oh, yeah, okay. Black leaders such as Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois became concerned about her welfare. None of the allegations were true. Rector and her siblings went to school in Taft and all closer than twine. They lived in modern five-room cottage, and they owned an automobile that same year. Rector enrolled in the Children's House and boarding school for teenagers at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. Blah, 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 blah. The family moved into what would be known as the Rector Mansion. Legal wrangling over Rector's estate and some mismanagement continued until she was 20. They skipped a lot. Basically, the people that were leasing the deeds to her land was not paying her exactly what she should have been getting paid. So even though she was very rich, they estimated that they were withholding about maybe 30 or 40% of the actual worth of the land.
Well, I mean, I could understand that because the parents really couldn't tell you what was going on. They were probably just really happy to have money. And then my question was, was her land sold? Was it stolen? Does her ancestors still have it? What?
Oh, you mean today? Rector died in 67 at the age of 65. Her remains were buried in the city cemetery. A long time had passed. I don't really see what happened. Rector lived a comfortable life, enjoying her wealth. She had taste, fine clothing, and fast cars. She was frequently taken blah, blah, blah. Her husband partnered in 1928 with the automobile dealer Homer and moved to Chicago. Blah, blah, blah. Constant depression, individual clothes, 35, sad married, William Crawford. They owned a restaurant.
You're like actually reading to yourself on air. People are trying to listen.
No, because it's not. It's really a lot of throwaway information. It's not saying anything. There's no point in reading this out loud. It's not really saying what happened to her land.
I wonder then if it was stolen.
Probably. Yeah, because later life. Yeah, because they jumped from when Dubois established the Children's Department of the NAACP, which would investigate claims of white guardians who were suspected of depriving black children of land or wealth. It goes from there and saying that she went to that school in Taft and they lived in a 5-room cottage, and upon graduating, she attended the Institute. Rector was already a millionaire by the time she had turned 18. She owned stocks and bonds, boarding house, a bakery, restaurant in Muskogee, Oklahoma, as well as 2,000 acres of prime river bottom land at that point she left Tuskegee and moved to Kansas City. She purchased a house there. She married. The wedding was private, blah, blah, blah. And then it jumps into she lived the rest of her life comfortable on her wealth, and, she had fast cars and a chauffeur and blah. And then she died. So they're not telling you anything about what happened to her river, her land at the river, the 2,000 acres that she owned, and it's not telling you anything about the oil land that she had in Oklahoma. It's just nothing. So more than likely they beat her out of her money. Or either that or when she died, it just probably rolled over into whoever was the executors of the estate.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't like read. I really hate reading stuff like this because you can get mad at the parents, but at the same time they were slaves. Like they weren't educated. They didn't know what was going on, and it's just I don't know how long though it takes. Like if you're stupid, you know you're stupid, right? Like, do you not know you're stupid? Is that something that happens?
If you're stupid, I don't think you're aware that you're stupid, but I don't think they were stupid. I think they were uneducated. Well,
but that still makes you dumb in a way.
Stupid,
so if you
they're
know,
not going to be aware they were stupid. But if they're uneducated, then you are totally aware that you're uneducated. And if they had enough money, they could have just
you know what though?
paid somebody.
If Dubois is coming to you and saying, I think somebody's beating you out of your money, at what point do you then start to say, okay, I need to go to school and figure this out? I need to learn this thing about money. So this doesn't happen again.
I would have more thought to hire somebody trustworthy to teach me.
But they were all white back then.
Yeah, but they were good white people. You could have found some through the grapevine, a good white person that would legitimately help you.
Yeah,
as opposed to going to school where you would have got beat up, spit on, probably wouldn't even been able to get into school, probably raising your tuition every day because of, whatever. I would have just hired somebody.
Well, fair enough. I just, more than likely her land has been taken back. That's disappointing.
Again, like I said, it's unfortunate. Is Char still gone?
I guess he is. Anyway, the next person I want to talk about is I was about to say Andrew. Andre Callaloo was a slave from New Orleans who became a lieutenant in the Confederate Native Guard when the Civil War broke out in '62. Callaloo switched sides to join the Union Regiment, the 1st Louisiana Native Guard. This was mostly made up of escaped slaves who had joined the Union forces to fight against the Confederate Army. Callaloo was made a captain in Company E, who were considered the best drilled companies in the entire regiment. In 1863, the Union Army launched an attack in Confederate position Port Hudson. The attack was poorly devised, as the defenses of the Port Hudson were strong, but Callaloo was selected to lead his men on the first day of the attack in an almost suicidal charge against the Confederate shooters. But despite suffering heavy casualties and losses, Callaloo was able to rally his men, persuade them to keep fighting, and during one charge, his arm was blown off, but he continued to fight until he was killed by a Confederate artillery shell. Callaloo was one of the first of African American officers in the Union Army to be killed during the Civil War. Accounts of his heroism, though, was widely circulated in the press, and he was often cited as the example to persuade blacks to enlist in the U.S. Army.
Wow.
I got another gangster named Robert Smalls, who was a slave from Beaufort, South Carolina, who was assigned to the CSS Planter, a Confederate military transport ship. In May 1862, while the ship's 3 white officers were ashore in Charleston, Smalls and they're skipping ahead, way ahead. Anyway, Smalls was working on this ship with these Confederate officers, and they were basically planting mines, in the water, so the Union Army couldn't send, or the Union Navy couldn't send their ships up the river, attack. But this whole time, he was learning more and more how to be a captain, and learning, was memorizing with, photographic memory in his head where they were planting all the mines. And he was planning to get his wife and his children and everybody out of slavery. And as time went on, more and more black people that he knew was like, I know you're planning something. What's up? What are you trying to do? And, he basically told them, like, my plan is to get out of here. So anyway, that's the little backstory. I'm not going to get back to this. Smalls and 8 other enslaved crewmen stole the boat and their families. I don't know why they're not putting that in there. Smalls dressed in this captain's uniform and sailed to the nearby wharf to collect the crew's family, who were hiding upriver. He was then able to maneuver past the 5 Confederate forts who were guarding, but because he was dressed in the clothes, he would just wave at them, and they assumed, like, that's Captain so-and-so. And, he knew the correct secret signals to give them, because they had special kind of signals that they would do to know that, that's really a Confederate crew and not just people pretending. But he had been watching his captain and memorizing all of this stuff. He sailed the ship past Fort Sumter and headed straight towards the Union ships, and he was sidestepping and dodging all of the mines that he remembered in his mind exactly where they put him, because he was a part of the crew that did it. All of this he tasked to memory. He went straight to the Union ships flying up white bed sheets.
Horribly if it relied on my memory.
He surrendered the planter and all his cargo, including a code book, to the U.S. Navy. All of the crewmen and their families were freed from slavery, and Smalls was invited to meet the President, Abraham Lincoln, and help convince him to allow black people to join the U.S. Army and Navy. Smalls joined the service for the Union Navy, and in 1863 became the first black captain of a vessel in the United States. After the war, he became a politician and was elected to the House of Representatives as a Republican candidate for South Carolina. He was the longest-serving black member of Congress until Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boy was a beast.
That's insane, and that's insane that he had to convince the president to let them get into the military because, like, I wonder, back then, like, from the standpoint of a white person back then, what did they just look at black people as? Like, you can clearly see a human in front of you, but it's just, you just completely dismiss them, or, like...
You're talking about a society that convinced themselves that these people are mentally inferior to you. So, like the whole thing with the Tuskegee Airmen, the reason that they weren't in the war earlier is because the U.S. Air Force thought that the black mind was unable to operate complicated machinery. That's what they thought. So that's why they didn't really fly too much.
We
you know,
built the United States, how we operated all the machinery.
But they don't. That's not how they look at them.
That doesn't make sense to me.
They didn't consider it to be that way. Yeah.
That's
So anyway, I have another one named Henry Johnson. Now this is a little later in history. This is around World War I. Was a soldier in the Black Regiment of the New York National Guard, which was later renamed the 369th Infantry Regiment, based in Harlem. They later became known as the Harlem Hellfighters on account of their exploits.
I actually never heard of them.
Yeah, during World War I, Johnson's regiment was assigned to the French Army, as many white American soldiers had refused to fight alongside black troops, but the French did not have this problem. While on guard duty in May 1918, Johnson and his colleague had come under attack from a group of 24 German soldiers. Both Johnson and his colleague were shot multiple times. Despite this, Johnson is alleged to have fought off all the German troops single-handedly with his rifle, then using it as a club once he had run out of bullets. When the Germans tried to capture his comrades, he slashed at them with a knife until they were retreated. He killed at least 4 of the German troops in the process and injured others. Johnson successfully rescued the injured comrades despite suffering over 20 wounds, and was nicknamed the Black Death.
Wait a second, before you go on. You're telling me he ran out of bullets, started beating these with his gun, and was still alive?
Yeah, and then when something happened to his gun, apparently he took out his knife and started slashing them. Just hand to hand, wet work.
Why do we not have a movie on this? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it gets better. Injured in the process. Johnson successfully rescued his injured comrades despite suffering over 20 wounds, and was nicknamed the Black Death by fellow soldiers. Both men were awarded the French Croix de...
This keeps getting better and better. So he got messed up 20 times, was still going, saved people, and we don't have a movie on him?
Both men were awarded the French Croix de Guerre, whatever, Medal of Bravery, but were unrecognized. Now, I know this story. The French had awarded them with this. Basically, it was the French version of the Medal of Honor. But the United States Army was so racist that the French wanted to give it to them. The Army said no. So after the war, and they were transferred back home, the French sent the Medals of Honor to the United States anyway to give to them, but the United States never gave it to them.
Wow.
And they never told them. They refused to acknowledge that these men did this amazing thing. They posthumously
we need to write
the
into
Purple Heart.
Jordan Peele or somebody. Somebody needs to do a movie on this person. Are
Jordan
you serious?
Peele is not the only black director. Cut it out. Stop it.
I'm just looking
anyway,
at just somebody that just came to mind.
The United States posthumously awarded the Purple Heart to them by President Clinton in '96. That was the first time they acknowledged him.
Good Lord.
'96. And this man died in
what
1929.
year did this happen?
1897 he was born in 1897 and died in 1929. This was in World War I.
Good God.
Bill Clinton in '96 was the first time they acknowledged this. Not only this guy, but the entire group was ignored. The Harlem 369th Infantry. They don't talk about him. You know.
That's I would watch it.
Yeah.
That's like one of those Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, that can't really happen in real life. Wow. That's unfortunate. Sitting here fighting for your country and your country can give a crap about you.
All right. We also have this man was born in 1919, died in 1943. Wow, he was young. Good Lord.
Yeah, right?
Dory Miller was, 20. Was it 20? Yeah, 20.
I can't math, so that's why I'm asking you.
24. Dory Miller was a mess attendant, which is a kitchen worker from the Navy, from Waco, Texas. He was working on board battleship West Virginia when it came under attack in Pearl Harbor at the time, and the U.S. Army was segregated, so African Americans were not given combat roles and did not receive any weapon training. When the attack began on December 7th, 41, Miller reported to his battle station where his job was to carry any injured colleagues to safety. Good Lord. He dragged a number of men from the deck of the ship, including the ship's captain. Miller then returned to the deck, picked up an anti-aircraft machine gun, which he had never been trained to use, and started firing at the Japanese planes, who were still dive bombing all over Pearl Harbor, and he was able to shoot down 4 Japanese fighters before the call was given to abandon ship. News bulletins soon emerged of the heroic Negro messmen, and it was from the reports that Miller was eventually identified. He became the first black man to be awarded the U.S. Navy Cross. Miller was killed in 1943 when his new ship, the USS Liscome Bay, was struck by Japanese torpedo in the Pacific. I'm sorry. Yep, the boy was a beast.
That sounds like, okay, so did you say he picked up the aircraft gun?
It was an anti-aircraft. They have them bolted to the deck. It's these big guns that you kind of step into and they go over your shoulders. They're huge. But he never got trained. Black people weren't allowed to train on weaponry, and they had no clue. But he grabbed it and cut them down, 4 of them. And then, they gave the word to abandon ship, so he had to roll out. So he probably would have shot down more.
And we don't hear about them in school because why are we learning about Viking and German history? And we have cool people in our own history. The only thing is they just happen to be darker skinned.
Well, see, this is the reason why we need this time now. I personally believe that black people should be doing this all year long. They should give their kids assignments and, tell them to, research the first black person that ever went into space, or the first black Navy SEAL, or the first black whatever. Like, you should give your kids assignments for them to learn about who they are, I think that's important because, you know, the school districts are typically not going to do it. And for some reason, you got a lot of black people now, the move that they want to make is sending their kids to private school. But I don't know why, because they're not going to do anything that's any more beneficial for your kids than public school. So why would you spend extra money? I don't get that. I mean, unless you're trying to avoid violence in your current school district, that I get. You know, like if your kid is getting tuned up every single day to the point it's starting to affect them mentally, yeah, I get that. But to have this perception that, oh, you can't get a good education unless that's crazy. That needs to stop. You got to be a part of your own rescue. But anyway.
No, I completely agree with you. Completely agree. Char said she's been trying to speak since we were talking about the little girl. She was saying it was the estate and everything like that. But I guess something's wrong with your mic, Char. We can't hear you, darling. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't know how we would rectify this issue of being taught about
she's not on. I'm looking at the switchboard. She's not even on. I don't know what she's talking about. But go ahead. You said rectify what?
The issue of us not being taught about this in school, because, I mean, would it take something like, I don't know, a rich black person to buy out McNally and whoever does the school books, McNally and something, I can't remember their name.
No, listen to me. No, it's not even, you don't need that. What it needs to be is black people need to have more of a political presence. And I don't mean black people in politics. I mean black people showing up to vote. If black people can do a GoFundMe for, I don't know, Beyonce to get whatever, and listen, she asked for something, Beyonce. If she asked for a GoFundMe to do something, there will be hundreds of thousands of dollars that comes in from black people all over the place. So what we have to do is we need to rethink our priorities. If you can spend $200-$300 on a weave, or you can spend $200-$300 on Jordans, or you can spend $5,000-$6,000 on rims for your truck, you can put some money aside to get a candidate in your state representatives, your city council members, your mayors, your whatever. These people work for you. So if you have a candidate that you want to push in your district, you need to get that candidate, give them the support and money that they need to run against whomever is in there now, get them in position. Once they're in position, they can start to make the changes that you need for your community, as long as you continue to support that candidate. When you start allowing other constituents to come in who don't have your best interest in mind, and they're giving that candidate more money than you, then where do you think their loyalty is going to lie? They're not going to stay with you if you're broke and you're giving them nothing. You know what I mean? Because the actual job is not going to really pay anything. This government work is cheap, but it's about the stuff on the side that you get, the endorsements or whatever. That's what these politicians want. It's not just the president. Actually, your vote for president means nothing, because it's the Electoral College that votes in who's the president. So 99% of the country can decide they want this person for president, but if the Electoral College decides the other person is who they want, it doesn't matter what that 99% voted for, because the popular vote doesn't dictate who becomes president. But the popular vote does dictate who becomes governor, who becomes mayor, then the mayor decides who the superintendent is going to be, who the chief of police is going to be, all these cops that are just killing black people and not have anything happen to them, that starts at the police commissioner. So if you get a mayor that has your best interest in mind, who gets a police commissioner who is like-minded, then all of that is going to start running downhill, and everything will start changing. Black people still don't understand to this day this issue. So they keep thinking, I'm going to send them to private school. That's not the answer. I'm going to march and complain. That's not the answer. It's not going to do nothing.
Yeah. Well, like I told the other tech this afternoon, his thing was, we just all need to get together and get it together, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yep, that's never going to happen. So, once again, that's never going to happen. I think Char should be on trying to come in, even though we only have 4 minutes left.
Hello?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Can you guys actually hear me? I've been trying so hard for 20 minutes. I don't know. Wah. That's all you're hearing on my end is nothing. Okay, so that was a really good discussion. I just called in to say goodbye. No, I'm kidding. Oh, I don't know what I'm like, what is going on? It's like I felt like I was in a Twilight Zone because it was such a good discussion. I'm interjecting. I'm having the discussion with you. I'm giving my little thoughts and my opinions, and you haven't heard me. I just haven't heard anything. That's
you didn't hear nothing.
I mean, it was so funny, and I'm thinking, okay, but you know what? I still learned a lot on the other end here because I could still hear you. And so, yeah, and Logic brought up some real good unsung heroes as well. So I think it was a good show overall, actually, with all everyone.
Man, some of the heroes that Logic brought up, I need a movie on these people, seriously.
I know. That's why I heard you say that. I was like, yeah, I know, movie of the week, right? Hello. Yeah, absolutely. Even he was talking about the private school system and all that. How people have these stereotypes and assumptions about, if I put my kids in school. I mean, there was just a lot that I learned today. It's not just about, political activists. Political activists. I'm talking too fast. You guys know what I'm saying. So it's not just about that. Politics is so much that we contributed in our society, in the world. There's just so much. It's unlimited. I just really hope that so many other people have learned a lot today. And again, don't just think of Black History for 28 days, listeners, not just 28 days. Even if with your own children, give them a challenge or an assignment, maybe in June when they're not in school. Hey, look up someone in Black History that you find that you're proud of or that you think has an exciting, something that they've done that's changed the world of the way that we think, that's interesting or that's fun, whatever it is. Something to talk about, So that way we can get the younger generation not only educated about what they can be proud of, but, we all learn something new every day, but we really do matter the fact that we're here, even though it was against our will when we were dragged over here initially, but we're here and we've made a difference, and that's really what matters. So I think I really was hurt this time.
Well, I agree. And I think we have about 30 seconds.
I think we do.
Okay, we have some real good air.
I'll leave it off with, I think people should grab that book I talked about before, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. It really gets into a lot of things that are largely unspoken in the Black community.
And Logic's going to go ahead and post that book's link to our Facebook. So if you go to our Facebook, No Conduct Radio, you can go ahead and see it there. Go ahead, Logic.
That's it. Right there.
Thanks, Logic. I'll definitely be looking
All right. Well,
and
thank you for joining us tonight, even though we had so many technical difficulties and Kai was so unprofessional and doing the show while working. But we're going to be back next week right here on Blog Talk Radio. Right here on No Conduct Radio at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll be right back to our normal dysfunctional self. Thank you for joining us,
Yeah,
everyone. Peace out.
Dropped out. Okay. Everybody have a great week. Okay. Goodbye, Claudette. Goodbye, Kai. Goodbye, listeners. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Right.